My wife cheated on me with her gym trainer and demanded half of everything in our divorce. Meanwhile, my father secretly controlled our house and savings. Here I am at 35, working at a local company for about a decade, and though I never imagined I'd be publishing, I've managed to stay calm through it all. I've always been pragmatic and level-headed. I married Kathy, who is 33, and though we've been married for 2 years, we've been together for almost 5. We have no children, which in hindsight might be a blessing. Kathy hasn't worked since we married. She took a break from her marketing career to focus on us. I didn't mind as my income was sufficient for both of us. Our home is modest but comfortable, and our savings are decent, though not extravagant. For a while, Kathy stayed home, but things began to change. I noticed she was becoming distant, spending more time at the gym or out with friends, often staying out later. She became defensive when I asked about it and less affectionate. I initially thought it was just stress or a normal rough patch in our marriage, but my unease grew. One evening, while Kathy was in the bathroom, her phone buzzed with a message from someone named Derek. At first, I didn't think much of it, but the message, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe," struck me as odd. Opening the message confirmed my worst fears. Kathy had been seeing Derek, her gym trainer. The texts revealed future plans that clearly didn't include me. I was stunned, sitting there frozen, staring at the phone. When I discovered that the woman I married and trusted was cheating on me, I felt numb rather than angry or depressed. I knew I had to confront her calmly, possibly due to the shock or my pragmatic nature. When she came out of the bathroom, I handed her the phone and asked her to explain. Initially, she tried to dismiss it as a joke, but it was clear that lying was futile. When I read some of the texts back to her, she simply said, "I want a divorce," without any guilt, apology, or regret. She said she had been seeing Derek for some time and was unhappy in our marriage, so she was leaving me for him. She then started discussing how we would split our assets, demanding half of everything: the house, the funds, and everything we had built together. She even argued that she deserved it because she had sacrificed her career for me. I was astonished by her nerve, but maintained my composure. By that point, I had emotionally detached, or perhaps I just knew something she didn't. I agreed to her demands and assured her I wouldn't contest the divorce. She seemed surprised, likely expecting an emotional outburst or argument, which I refused to give her. Most of our assets were actually in my father's name, something Kathy was unaware of and something I felt unnecessary to reveal. My father had wisely advised me years ago to put key assets in his name, anticipating that it would provide a safety net in case of debt, legal issues, or even a betrayal. In the future, I hadn't given it much thought at the time. It seemed like wise financial planning. So I knew Kathy wouldn't get what she expected when she insisted on claiming half of everything on paper. At that point, I had little to my name. Just a modest bank account, a car, and a few miscellaneous items. The house technically belonged to my dad, and most of my savings were under his supervision. I suggested handling things through mediation to avoid a messy legal battle, reasoning it would be simpler and less expensive for both of us. Kathy agreed, likely hoping to secure a substantial portion of my assets. However, she was unaware that my arrangement with my dad had been in place for years, and I had largely ignored it until the divorce discussions began. Though I appreciated my father's foresight, it wasn't quite what I had hoped for. Most of the funds and investments Kathy was targeting were officially owned by him, as was our property. I had always kept a low financial profile, so nobody, including Kathy, really questioned it. I informed my dad as soon as the divorce process began. Although he was unhappy with the situation, he understood the need for discretion. We consulted a lawyer to ensure everything was legally sound, and it turned out that everything was indeed in perfect order. Despite Kathy's demands, there wasn't much in my name for her to claim. Kathy acted quickly, hiring an aggressive divorce lawyer known for grabbing as much as possible. I chose a low-key, yet reputable attorney who specialized in complex financial cases. While I wanted to avoid a major confrontation, I wasn't going to let Kathy take advantage of the situation, and her attorney began to harass me over asset disclosure. The first phase of the divorce process did not go as Kathy had hoped. I had provided everything exactly as required by law. However, her lawyer's smiles faded when they realized how little my name appeared in the records. It was clear they were both puzzled and perhaps even suspicious, but there was nothing more they could do because I had been honest, and there were no hidden assets. Kathy then began berating me on the spot, calling me names and accusing me of lying. Despite this, I offered all the information I had and suggested we discuss everything further once she had calmed down. After a heated exchange and numerous accusations, I left. Now I'm turning to Reddit because I'm unsure if I handled the situation correctly. So Reddit, am I the jerk for agreeing to give her half of what I have, knowing she's not getting anywhere near what she expected? Update 1. Things are heating up. Kathy was incredulous after the initial asset disclosure, and her attorney wasn't any better. They clearly thought I was hiding something when they saw the modest figures on paper. Kathy kept questioning where all the money, property, investments, and savings were. She was stunned that after years of marriage, there was so little to divide. Suspecting I had secret accounts, her lawyer hired a forensic accountant to investigate further. I was initially anxious, not because I had anything to hide, but because I knew this would only delay the process. After reviewing everything again and consulting with my attorney, it became clear that there was nothing legally they could uncover. Every detail I provided was accurate, and there were no hidden assets under my dad's name. Kathy's frustration grew as the investigation dragged on, as she was not used to such a straightforward revelation. Kathy was struggling to accept the reality of her situation, finding herself with nothing substantial to hold on to. She attempted to justify her major role in our lives and my career by claiming that managing the home allowed me to focus on my profession and advance my career. While having her handle things at home was occasionally helpful, it wasn't as though I was running a Fortune 500 company. As a mid-level accountant, my career had been steady for years, with no dramatic income increase attributable to her support. Despite this, Kathy insisted that she had sacrificed her career in marketing for my benefit, a choice she made independently and not something I ever requested. Her attorney frequently argued that I had gained unfairly from her sacrifice, but evidence for this claim was lacking. They even attempted to involve my parents, suggesting they were helping me hide assets or pay me under the table. This attempt angered me greatly, as my parents had no involvement in the matter. Fortunately, my attorney swiftly blocked these efforts. As the divorce proceedings dragged on and Kathy grew increasingly desperate, she chose to tarnish my reputation in other ways. Unable to achieve her goals through legal means, she began spreading claims within our social circle that I had been financially abusive and withholding money from her. The lies Kathy was spreading truly shocked me. Mutual friends would tell me how she claimed I was leaving her with nothing and had manipulated her into believing we had more than we did. She even posted cryptic, critical comments on social media about betrayed narcissistic partners. Naturally, some people supported her, as there are always those who side with the seemingly wronged party. However, our close friends knew me better and understood that I wasn't the type to act in such a way. Though it frustrated me to see her attempt to tarnish my reputation, I tried not to let it affect me. I knew the truth, and those who mattered knew it too. I had more pressing concerns, like making sure she didn't exploit me unfairly. Kathy was orchestrating a smear campaign, so I focused on covering all my bases. My attorney and I stayed in close contact, ensuring we had all necessary evidence to support my side of the story. I recorded every interaction with Kathy, every demand she made, and every attempt she made to paint me as the villain. Such documentation would be crucial if the case went to court. I also started gathering evidence of her affair with Derek. Although adultery typically doesn't affect divorce settlements much, I wanted to show that she wasn't the innocent victim she claimed to be. I collected screenshots of the books they shared, photos of them together, and even quotes from acquaintances who knew about the affair but stayed silent. My goal was to reveal the truth, not to disgrace her. I also began preparing for the fallout, knowing things would get ugly once she realized she wouldn't be getting half of everything. I maintained my distance, keeping focused on what needed to be done. While focusing on my work and personal life and preparing for the next stage of the divorce, Derek's response added a new layer of complexity. Kathy seemed enthusiastic when she first told him she wanted to leave me for him, envisioning a new life together. However, as the divorce proceedings became disorganized, Derek started to withdraw. It became clear he wasn't as committed to Kathy as she thought. He began having doubts, especially about handling her financial issues. Kathy, eager to start a new life with Derek, was disillusioned when he failed to meet her expectations. This situation led to a loss of gym patrons for Derek, as people were reluctant to be associated with a trainer involved with a married woman. Derek has been distancing himself from Kathy, who is now realizing that this isn't the fairy tale she imagined. Although I almost feel sorry for Kathy, I remember her actions towards me and feel conflicted. On one hand, I'm relieved that I protected my assets and Kathy isn't getting what she hoped for. On the other hand, it's disheartening to see my former marriage unravel like this, especially since I once cherished our life together. Update 2. Things have taken a turn for the worse since my last report. Kathy is growing increasingly desperate and is attempting to make my life difficult because she's not getting the financial settlement she expected. Recently, she has threatened to damage my job and reputation, declaring she would make sure everyone at my company knew what kind of person I am. I was initially confused by her request to make things simpler for her by giving her more money. Her intentions became clearer when she started appearing unexpectedly at my workplace. The first visit seemed innocent, as if she just needed to talk, but she became aggressive when I told her there was nothing more to discuss. She threatened to tell everyone the truth about me, and I managed to get her out before things escalated further. Her behavior has since become increasingly erratic. She returned to her parents' home after realizing she wouldn't receive the large payment she expected. According to what I've heard, her situation is dire, and her parents are not happy with the outcome, though they remain supportive. Mutual acquaintances have reported that she's been on the verge of a breakdown, lashing out at her family and causing turmoil. The legal battle has become more challenging. Kathy's attorney is aggressively trying to find any dirt on me, despite my lawyer's assurance that our assets are not up for grabs in this divorce. They've even filed motions to subpoena my parents' financial information and attempt to depose my colleagues, trying to uncover any hidden assets or income. Each time we address one issue, they come up with another, making the process feel like an endless chess game. My lawyer is doing their best to manage the situation, but it's a constant struggle against Kathy's relentless tactics. Despite the strict legal protections my father established years ago, I've managed to stay ahead, but it's becoming increasingly challenging. I'm uncertain how long I can sustain this before we end up in court. We've attempted mediation twice, and both times were a disaster. In the first session, Kathy demanded half of the house and our money, which led to the session ending abruptly. My lawyer explained that the house was in my father's name and that our financial situation wasn't as she believed. Kathy accused me of lying and claimed the mediator was biased against her. The second mediation was no better. Kathy came in with completely unrealistic demands: half of our savings, full ownership of the house, and alimony for at least 5 years. When my attorney reiterated that she wasn't entitled to any of this, Kathy lost her temper, screaming about how I was leaving her destitute despite her sacrifices. Although I was seething inside, I remained calm. She wanted the divorce, cheated on me, and now she's acting as if I'm ruining her life. It's clear that this divorce is heading to court. Additionally, Kathy has been using borrowed money to cover her legal fees, and she's now running low. How she plans to pay her aggressive attorney is unclear and not my concern. Her desperation is evident. She's been complaining to anyone who will listen about how I've ruined her life. Friends have started distancing themselves from Kathy, exhausted by the constant drama and her ongoing victim mentality. It seems she's losing sight of what she hoped to achieve from this divorce. I've been doing my best to stay composed and handle everything strategically. I counter every new accusation or demand from Kathy with factual evidence. I have nothing to hide, so I provide more financial records than requested, unlike Kathy's team. My attorney has been exceptional in ensuring we adhere strictly to the law. I've also made an effort to respect my parents' privacy, even though Kathy's attempts to involve them are frustrating. Fortunately, legal protections prevent her from accessing their financial records. Her persistence suggests she believes there's some hidden asset I'm concealing, but her searches have yielded nothing. When the court hearing finally arrived, it was impossible to describe the level of stress. Kathy took the stand first and accused me of hiding assets, lying about our wealth, and manipulating our budget. She painted herself as a victim who sacrificed her career for me, and at one point she cried on the stand about her trust being shattered by the divorce and my supposed financial dishonesty. However, the turning point came when my attorney presented evidence of her affair with Derek. The jury and judge could clearly see the truth as the details and proof of her relationship came to light. Kathy's victim narrative began to crumble as she attempted to downplay the affair, calling it a mistake. It had nothing to do with the divorce itself, but by then her reputation was tarnished. It became increasingly clear that her financial demands were driven more by greed than genuine need. When it was my turn to testify, I focused on staying composed and sticking to the facts. My attorney had thoroughly prepared me, and I knew that becoming defensive or angry wouldn't benefit my case. I reviewed how my assets had been held in my father's name for years, how I had provided comprehensive financial reports, and how I had tried to manage the divorce amicably through mediation. I also testified about Kathy's threats, unpredictable behavior, and ongoing smear campaign. My attorney countered Kathy's unfounded accusations with detailed documentation. We clarified our financial situation. My father owned the house, our savings were minimal, and there were no hidden assets. The judge seemed to appreciate my straightforwardness. I presented the facts clearly and without embellishment. During the trial, key witnesses were called. First, my father testified about the financial plan we had established, emphasizing that the property and investments were in his name and managed by him, establishing that Kathy had no claim to these assets. Next, one of my colleagues from the office refuted Kathy's claims of hidden money or under-the-table payments by confirming my regular salary and modest income, with no concealed sources of funds. The testimonies I presented were crucial in disproving Kathy's accusations. The judge saw that Kathy had merely a straightforward financial arrangement that she hadn't bothered to understand, rather than any complex scheme on my part. After several days of testimony and legal arguments, it was a great relief to hear the judge rule in my favor. Kathy had insisted on half of the house and our money, but she was denied both. Since my father owned most of our possessions, Kathy had no claim to them. Her only award was a modest sum of temporary alimony, barely enough to cover her legal expenses and far from the lifestyle she hoped to maintain. The judge's decision took into account her affair and lack of financial contribution to the household, and it was clear that her attempts to portray herself as a victim were unconvincing. When the decision was announced, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. The months of anxiety, accusations, and fear of losing everything legally vanished in that moment. Kathy, however, was distraught. She cried and shouted that the system was unfair and that I had wronged her. Her frustration was evident as she stormed out of the courtroom, leaving her attorney behind. It was clear she hadn't prepared for the possibility of losing. My initial reaction was one of relief. I thanked my attorney for their hard work and left the courtroom. My phone quickly filled with texts from friends and relatives congratulating me. News of the outcome spread fast, and the neighborhood buzzed with the details. Knowing the truth had come out and that I could finally move on with my life was a great comfort. Kathy's behavior, though dramatic, was still ongoing. She had a complete breakdown in front of a small group outside the courtroom, shouting about my supposed dishonesty and manipulation of the system, and her plans to appeal the ruling. However, she lacks the financial resources to follow through with that appeal. Her attorney had clearly indicated during the proceedings that she was running low on funds, and I've heard she continues to borrow money from friends and family just to get by. I am deeply grateful for my father's financial advice and support, which has been invaluable during this time. Without his help, I'd be in a much worse situation. I also want to thank my friends, relatives, and colleagues who stood by me, even as Kathy spread accusations and tried to tarnish my reputation. Looking forward, I am hopeful, though I know it will take time to fully recover emotionally and financially. I am ready to move on and start fresh. I've learned valuable lessons from this experience and am determined not to repeat the same mistakes. For now, I'm focused on returning to normalcy and appreciating the peace that comes with closing this chapter.